My name is Frank Miller. I'm 68 years old, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I spent 40 years in construction. I started as a laborer at 19, worked my way up to foreman by 35, built homes, commercial buildings, 2 churches. I learned early that a structure is only as strong as its foundation. You cut corners there, everything above it suffers. That's not poetry, that's physics. I retired 3 years ago. Linda and I had talked about it for years. The things we'd do, the trips we'd take, the slow mornings with coffee on the back porch. We built a good life here, raised 2 kids in this house, paid off the mortgage in 2003. The place is solid. I made sure of that. Replaced the roof myself at 62, redid the deck at 65. A man takes care of what's his. Linda and I have been married 35 years. She worked as a school secretary until her retirement 2 years back. We've had our disagreements over the decades, like anyone does, but we always talked things through. Respect each other. That's what marriage is when you strip away the romance. It's respect, routine, and showing up every day. Or at least that's what I thought. It was a Tuesday in September when everything changed. I was in the garage organizing my toolbox, something I do when I need to think, and Linda came home from her book club earlier than usual. I heard the car door slam. When she walked in, her face was pale, tight around the eyes. "Mom's in the hospital," she said. She took a turn. "They're running tests. Helen is 84. She lives at an assisted living facility, about 20 minutes from here. Good place. Clean. Linda visits her twice a week, regular as clockwork. Hearing she was sick hit me hard. Helen's a tough woman. Raised Linda on her own after Linda's father left. But 84 is 84. "I'll drive you," I said, already reaching for my keys. "No." Linda's voice was sharp, then softer. "I need to handle this myself, Frank. Woman-to-woman stuff. You know how she is?" I did know. Helen could be particular. But still, "I'll wait in the lobby then. You shouldn't be alone with this. Frank." She put her hand on my arm, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Please, I need some space to process this. I'll call you if anything changes." I let it go. What else was I supposed to do? That was the first night. She left at 6 o'clock, came back at 11:30. I'd kept her dinner warm. She barely touched it, said she wasn't hungry, and went straight to bed. The second night was the same, and the third. By the end of the first week, we had a routine. Linda would start getting ready around 5:30, freshen up, change clothes, check her purse 3 times. At 6, she'd kiss me on the cheek, tell me not to wait up, and disappear into the evening. And every night, I'd sit in our living room with a cold plate and a quiet house, wondering why a dying woman needed 6 hours of visiting time. Something didn't sit right, but I'm not the kind of man who jumps to conclusions. Not yet, anyway. You know the look a woman gives you when she loves you? I hadn't seen that look in 14 days. Linda and I used to sit on the porch after dinner. Nothing fancy, just talking about the day, watching the neighbor's dog chase squirrels, commenting on who needed to mow their lawn. Small stuff, the stuff that makes up a life. Now the porch sat empty every evening at 6. The change in her wasn't just the absence, it was everything else that came with it. Linda used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter, screen up, battery dying, never giving it a second thought. Now it was always in her hand, always face down. When I walked into a room, she'd flip it over or slide it into her pocket with a casual movement that was anything but casual. I'm not a suspicious man by nature. 40 years of marriage teaches you that privacy isn't the enemy. But this was different. This was intentional. She stopped asking about my day, stopped telling me about hers. Conversation became transactional. "Did you take your blood pressure medicine? The garbage needs to go out. I'll be late again tonight." When she came home from the hospital, she didn't look like a woman carrying the weight of a sick mother. She looked energized, flushed. Her eyes were bright, her movements quick. She'd head straight to the bathroom, shower immediately, come out in her robe smelling like the lavender soap she saves for special occasions. I tried asking specific questions. What did the doctors say today? Is she responding to the treatment? Does she need anything from home? Linda's answers were smoke. "Oh, you know, just tired. They're still running tests." She's comfortable. Comfortable. That word started to bother me. You don't visit a comfortable person for 6 hours every single night. One evening, I suggested we visit together on the weekend. Helen would like that, I said, the three of us. She's not up for visitors yet, Linda said, not looking up from her phone. Just immediate family for now. I'm her son-in-law of 35 years. I've fixed Helen's sink, moved her furniture, drove her to every doctor's appointment before she went into Meadowbrook, but apparently I didn't qualify anymore. The silence in the house grew teeth. I'd turn on the TV just to have noise. I started eating dinner at 5 so I wouldn't have to sit with a cold plate after she left. I took longer walks with our old lab, Chester, just to fill the hours. At night, I'd lie awake listening for her car in the driveway. I'd hear the garage door open around 11:30. She'd slip into bed quietly, her back to me, and within minutes, her breathing would even out into sleep. I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder when my wife had become a stranger. 14 days. That's all it took for 35 years to start feeling like a story I'd heard about someone else's marriage. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But a foundation can only take so many cracks before you have to stop and ask yourself, is this thing still sound? A man knows the difference between stress and guilt. That night, standing in the rain, I saw guilt. It was Thursday. The weather service had been tracking a storm system all day. Heavy rain, possible flooding, winds gusting to 40. By 5 o'clock, it was coming down in sheets. You couldn't see across the street. Linda started her routine. Hair, makeup, the purse check. You're not driving in this, I said. It wasn't a question. I'll take you. The truck handles better in weather like this anyway. Frank, I'm fine. Linda, it's dangerous out there. I've already got the truck warmed up. I said I'm fine. Her voice had an edge. Your mother wouldn't want you risking your life to visit her. Let me drive you. I'll wait in the lobby. You won't even know I'm there. She spun on me. Why don't you trust me? The question hit like a slap. What are you talking about? I'm trying to keep you safe. You're smothering me, Frank. I'm not a child. I can drive myself to see my own mother without you hovering over me like I'm incompetent. I'd seen Linda angry before. 35 years, you see everything. But this wasn't anger about the truck or the rain. This was something cornered and desperate. I'm not saying you're incompetent. I have to go. She's waiting. Linda. The door slammed. I stood in the kitchen, my keys still in my hand, listening to her car start. Through the window, I watched her taillights blur in the downpour, red ghosts fading into the dark. Chester came and sat next to me, the way dogs do when they sense something's wrong. I've been in construction my whole life. I've seen men lie about shortcuts they took, materials they substituted, inspections they skipped. Every single time, when you called them on it, they got defensive, loud, made you the problem instead of the problem being the problem. That's what Linda just did. I wasn't asking her to justify visiting her sick mother. I was offering to drive her in a storm, and she'd responded like I'd accused her of something. Because maybe some part of her knew I was starting to. I should have felt guilty for doubting her. I should have told myself I was being paranoid, that stress makes people act out of character, that I was the one in the wrong. But standing there in my kitchen, listening to the rain hammer the roof, I felt something else, entirely. Certainty. Something was wrong. This wasn't about Helen. This wasn't about stress or grief or a daughter's devotion. This was about something Linda didn't want me to see. I'd spent my whole life building things, fixing things, shoring up weak points before they collapsed. I knew how to read a structure. I knew the signs of failure before it happened, and my marriage was showing every single one of them. I needed proof, not suspicion, not gut feelings. Proof, and I knew exactly where to start. Numbers don't have emotions. Numbers don't lie to you over breakfast. And these numbers were screaming at me. Friday morning, Linda was in the shower. I could hear the water running upstairs, the familiar sounds of our routine. Everything is normal. Everything is fine. Except nothing was fine. I walked out to the garage. Linda's sedan sat there. A silver Honda Accord I'd helped her pick out 6 years ago. Reliable car, good gas mileage. I'd maintained it myself. Oil changes, tire rotations, brake pads. I knew that car inside and out. I opened the driver's side door and looked at the odometer. I keep a small notebook in my toolbox. Old habits from the job sites, tracking materials, logging equipment hours, noting details. I flipped back 3 weeks to the last time I'd checked her oil. I'd written down the mileage, 47,382. The odometer now reads 48,651. I did the math in my head. 269 miles in 3 weeks. The facility is 8 miles from our house. I'd driven there enough times to know. 16 miles round trip. Linda had made 21 trips. That should be 336 miles. She'd driven 933 miles more than that. I stood there with the notebook in my hand, staring at those numbers. I checked my math again, then again. Construction taught me to measure twice and cut once. I've measured it 3 times now. The math didn't change. 60 miles a night. That's what she was putting on the car. Every single night. Where do you drive 60 miles in Des Moines and call it visiting the hospital? My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking, angry, something, but I just felt cold, clear, like when you're looking at a cracked foundation and you know exactly what needs to happen next, even though you don't want to do it. I heard the shower shut off upstairs. I closed the car door quietly, put the notebook back in my toolbox, and walked inside. Linda came down 10 minutes later, hair still damp, already checking her phone. "I'm making eggs," I said. "You want some?" "Just toast. I'm running late." Late for what? I thought, but I didn't say it. She ate standing up, glancing at her phone between bites. I watched her from across the kitchen island. This woman I'd spent 35 years with. This woman whose face I knew better than my own. I didn't recognize her anymore. "Frank? You okay? You're staring." "Just thinking," I said. She kissed me on the cheek, quick, automatic, and grabbed her purse. "I'll be home late again. Don't wait up." The garage door opened. The engine started. She was gone. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and my phone. I'd been putting this off, telling myself I was overreacting, giving her the benefit of the doubt. But the doubt was gone now. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I needed. Helen's number. Time to find out if Linda's mother was really in the hospital, or if my wife had been lying to me for 3 straight weeks. "Linda?" Helen asked me, confused. "I haven't seen my daughter since the 4th of July. The words came through the phone line clear as a bell. No confusion, no memory issues. Just honest bewilderment from an 84-year-old woman wondering why her son-in-law was calling to check on her health. I dialed the facility's front desk. At 6:15, right after Linda's car pulled out of the driveway, I'd told myself I was being paranoid, that there was some explanation, that the mileage was a mistake, that I'd recorded the wrong number 3 weeks ago. But I hadn't. Helen's voice was strong, alert. In the background, I could hear a television, Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak announcing the puzzle category. "Helen, it's Frank. I wanted to check on you. Linda said you'd been transferred to the hospital, but I called Mercy and they had no record of you, so I tried here." "Transferred?" "I'm in my room, dear. I haven't been to a hospital in years. Did Linda tell you I was sick?" My mouth went dry. No, just haven't talked to you in a while. Wanted to check in." "Well, that's sweet of you. I'm right as rain. Beat Margaret at Scrabble today. Triple word score on quartz. She's still mad about it." Helen laughed. That same sharp laugh she's had for as long as I've known her. "Is everything all right, Frank? You sound strange." "Everything's fine. Just wanted to hear your voice. You're a good man. Tell Linda to call me, would you? I left her 2 messages this week. She must be busy. I'll tell her. And Frank, you should come visit. Bring that handsome dog of yours. They allow pets on Tuesdays." "I will. Soon." I hung up. The phone felt heavy in my hand. I set it down on the kitchen counter, carefully, like it might explode. Helen wasn't in the hospital. Helen wasn't sick. Helen hadn't seen Linda since the 4th of July cookout we'd all attended 3 months ago. Linda had looked me in the eye every single night for 3 weeks and lied, not just to me. She'd used her own mother, her 84-year-old mother, as cover for what? I walked to my recliner and sat down. Chester came over and put his head on my knee. I scratched behind his ears, staring at nothing. 40 years in construction, you see buildings fail. You see what happens when someone cuts corners, uses cheap materials, builds on sand instead of rock. The collapse isn't sudden, it's slow. A crack here, a shift there, and then one day the whole thing comes down. That's what I was watching. The slow collapse of everything I thought was solid. I'd trusted Linda completely, the way you trust the ground under your feet. You don't think about it. You don't question it. It's just there, except it wasn't. Not anymore. I sat in that chair for an hour, didn't turn on the TV, didn't move, just sat there while the daylight faded and the house grew dark around me. Somewhere out there, my wife was doing what? Meeting someone? Seeing someone? The mileage made sense now. 60 miles round trip. That meant 30 miles out, 30 miles back. She wasn't going to the hospital 8 miles away. She was going somewhere far enough that she thought I'd never follow. She thought I'd just sit here, trust her, believe her. And for 3 weeks, that's exactly what I'd done. Not anymore. By the time the clock hit 7:30, I knew what I had to do. I needed to see it, whatever it was, wherever she was going, because until I saw it with my own eyes, some part of me would keep making excuses for her, and I was done with excuses. Panic is for boys. Strategy is for men. I had to treat this like a job site that had gone wrong. I didn't throw anything, didn't punch a wall, didn't pour myself a drink and spiral into self-pity. I sat in that recliner and let myself feel it for exactly 10 minutes. The betrayal, the humiliation, the death of the marriage I thought I had. Then I stood up and got to work. If I was going to follow her tomorrow night, I needed to think it through. Linda knew my truck, the gray F-150 I'd driven for 12 years. She'd spot it in a heartbeat if she was being careful, and something told me she was being very careful. I had another option. My old work truck, a '98 Ford Ranger I'd kept after retiring, bought it used in 2001, drove it to job sites for 15 years, retired it when I retired. It sat in the back corner of our garage under a tarp, registration still current, because I couldn't quite bring myself to let it go. Linda had probably forgotten it existed. I pulled the tarp off. The truck was dusty but sound. I turned the key. The engine coughed, then caught, ran rough for a minute, then smoothed out. Good enough. I backed it out of the garage and parked it on the street, 2 houses down where Linda wouldn't notice it when she came home. Then I went back inside and waited. She came home at 11:40. I was in bed, lights off, eyes closed, playing the part of the trusting husband one more time. She slipped under the covers, her back to me like always. I lay there listening to her breathe, steady, even, the breathing of someone with a clear conscience, or someone who'd gotten very good at lying. I wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, ask her who she was and what she'd done with my wife, but that would tip my hand. She'd have time to craft another story, another excuse. She'd been doing it for 3 weeks. She was good at it. No, I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. The kind you can't talk your way out of. I didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the ceiling, running through the plan. Follow at a distance. Stay back. Don't get spotted. See where she goes. See who she meets. Then decide what comes next. Morning came. Linda got up, showered, and made herself toast. Same routine. I drank my coffee and watched her move through our kitchen like a ghost. "You okay?" she asked. "You look tired. Didn't sleep well. You should see the doctor about that." Concern. She sounded genuinely concerned. I almost laughed. She left for her errands at 10. I spent the day preparing. Changed the oil in the Ranger, filled the tank, made sure the headlights worked. At 5 o'clock, I dressed in dark clothes, navy blue jacket, black jeans, nothing that would catch light. At 5:30, Linda started her routine. Hair, makeup, the purse check. At 6 o'clock, she kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door. I gave her 2 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys, walked out the side door, and got into the Ranger parked down the street. My hands were steady on the wheel. 40 years of managing job sites taught me patience, taught me how to handle it when things went sideways. This was just another problem to solve, another foundation that needed inspection. And tonight, I'd find out just how deep the damage went. She hit the blinker for exit 100. There's no hospital at exit 100, just a Motel 6 and a lot of bad decisions. I'd stayed 3 cars back the entire time, something I learned from watching too many detective shows in retirement. Keep distance. Don't make sudden moves. If she checks her mirrors, you're just another commuter heading home. But Linda wasn't checking her mirrors. She was driving with purpose, fast, but not reckless, 15 over the limit. The driving of someone who knows exactly where they're going and can't wait to get there. We'd started heading west on University Avenue, and for half a mile I thought maybe there was still an explanation, maybe some specialist office I didn't know about, maybe some treatment center. Then she merged onto I-80 West, away from the city, away from every hospital in Des Moines. My jaw tightened. My hands gripped the wheel a little harder. The highway stretched out in the early evening light. Traffic was moderate, enough cars that I could blend in, not so many that I'd lose her. I kept the Ranger steady at 70, letting a white Camry and a semi stay between us. She wasn't hesitating, wasn't checking her phone for directions. She'd done this drive before, many times. 23 minutes on the highway, I counted. Then her right blinker came on. Exit 100. I knew this exit. Nothing out here but a truck stop, a dying strip mall, and a cluster of budget motels that had been slowly deteriorating since the 90s. This was where truckers caught 4 hours of sleep, where people passing through stayed because it was cheap, where people met when they didn't want to be seen. I took the exit, hanging back as she turned right at the stop sign. The road was 2 lanes, poorly lit. A big rig rumbled past going the opposite direction. Half a mile down, I saw the sign. Motel 6. Vacancy. The neon was flickering. 1 letter already burned out. Linda's sedan pulled into the parking lot. I killed my headlights and rolled slowly past the entrance, turning into the lot of an abandoned gas station across the road. From there, I had a clear view. The motel was a long 2-story building. Doors painted red, most of the paint peeling. Maybe 40 rooms total. A handful of cars scattered across the lot. An old Chevy, a couple sedans, a motorcycle parked near the office, and Linda's silver Honda Accord. She'd parked near the end of the building, away from the office. Room 112, based on the numbers I could make out. She didn't get out of the car right away, just sat there for a minute, checking her face in the mirror, touching up her lipstick, getting ready. My chest felt tight. My breath came shallow. This wasn't a hospital. This wasn't a sick mother. This wasn't anything close to what she'd told me. This was a motel on a forgotten highway exit, the kind of place you go when you don't want anyone to know where you are. I sat in the dark across the street and waited to see what came next. I didn't have to wait long. I watched my wife of 35 years giggle like a schoolgirl with a man who couldn't hold a hammer, let alone a job. The door to room 112 opened. A man stepped out, tall, thin, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that had seen better days. He lit a cigarette, took a drag, looked around the parking lot like he was expecting someone. Then Linda got out of her car. She was smiling, not the polite smile she gave me anymore. A real smile, the kind that reaches your eyes. The man, I couldn't see his face clearly yet, opened his arms, and she walked right into them. He kissed the top of her head. She laughed at something he said. They stood there for a moment, comfortable, familiar. Then she went back to her car, popped the trunk, and pulled out a bottle of wine and a grocery bag. He took the wine from her, said something that made her laugh again, and they went inside. The door closed. The light in the window stayed on for a moment, then dimmed. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The man was Robert Haynes. I hadn't seen him in decades, but I knew who he was. Linda's high school boyfriend, the guy she dated before me. He'd been charming, from what I'd heard. Good-looking, smooth talker, never kept a job, never kept anything really. Drifted from place to place, living off charm and other people's generosity. I'd heard through mutual friends he'd moved back to Des Moines last year after a divorce, or maybe it was his 3rd divorce. I hadn't paid attention. I was paying attention now. This was who Linda was visiting every night. This was where 60 miles of mileage went. This was what she'd lied to me about, lied to her own mother about. Robert, a man who'd never built anything in his life, who'd never committed to anything, who showed up, took what he wanted, and left. And my wife was bringing him wine. I wanted to kick the door down, wanted to drag him out of that room and make him answer for this, wanted to ask Linda what the hell she was thinking, but I didn't move because I knew what would happen. She'd cry, she'd apologize, she'd say it was a mistake, that she'd end it, that she loved me, and maybe I'd believe her, or maybe I wouldn't. But either way, I'd never really know the truth. I needed more than this moment. I needed the full picture. So I sat there in the dark for another 20 minutes, watching that motel room window. No movement, no lights, just silence. Then I started the Ranger and drove home. Linda wouldn't be back until after 11. That gave me time to think, time to plan, time to decide what kind of man I was going to be when this was over. Because one thing was certain, the Frank Miller who drove to this motel wasn't the same Frank Miller who'd be driving away from it. That man was gone. I could have kicked that door down, but a foreman knows you don't demo the building until you've cut the power lines. The drive back to Des Moines was 32 miles. I know because I watched every 1/10 of a mile tick by on the odometer, my hands at 10 and 2, my mind running through scenarios like blueprints. I could go back, pound on that door, make Robert answer for what he was doing with my wife. The thought had appeal, simple, direct, immediate. But then what? Linda cries, says it's not what it looks like. Robert plays the victim and says she came to him. Or maybe they both turn it around on me, say I'm controlling, that I drove her away, that this is somehow my fault for not being enough. And even if I keep my composure, even if I don't lay a hand on either of them, I'd be acting from emotion, from hurt, from the raw wound of betrayal. That's not how you handle a collapse. When a building starts to fail, you don't just start swinging a sledgehammer. You assess, you document, you cut utilities, you secure the perimeter, you make sure that when it comes down on your terms. This marriage was done. I know that now. I had known it the moment I saw her walk into Robert's arms, but I still had decisions to make about the house, the savings, the next 30 years of my life. If I confronted her tonight, full of rage and righteousness, she'd lawyer up. She'd claim I was unstable. She'd drain the accounts, claim half of everything I'd built, and walk away with Robert while I paid for her new life. That wasn't happening. I pulled into our driveway at 9:15. The house was dark. Chester barked once from inside, then recognized the engine and went quiet. I sat in the truck for a minute, staring at the home I'd built, the roof I'd replaced, the deck I'd rebuilt, the foundation I'd poured with my own hands 40 years ago. Everything is solid, everything is square, everything is true. Until it wasn't. I went inside, fed Chester. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the coffee cups in the drainer, the calendar on the wall with Linda's handwriting marking her evening visits. I couldn't sleep next to her tonight. Couldn't pretend anymore. The guest room was down the hall. We'd used it when the kids visited with the grandchildren. Clean sheets, decent mattress. I grabbed my pillow from our bedroom and set it up there. When Linda came home at 11:30, I heard her pause at the bedroom door. I heard her notice I wasn't there. She knocked softly on the guest room door. "Frank, you okay?" "Back's been bothering me," I said through the door. "Didn't want to keep you awake with my tossing." "Oh, okay. Feel better." Her footsteps retreated. Our bedroom door closed. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling of a room that felt more honest than anywhere else in this house. Tomorrow was Monday. Banks opened at 9, lawyers at 8:30. I had phone calls to make, accounts to secure, papers to file. Robert thought he was getting my wife. He had no idea what he was actually getting. I spent 40 years building that nest egg. It took me 40 minutes to make sure Robert wouldn't see a dime of it. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. I told Linda I was heading to the hardware store. Needed some lumber for a project in the garage. She barely looked up from her coffee. I drove to First National Bank instead. Tom Patterson was the branch manager. We'd known each other 20 years. He'd financed 2 of my work trucks and helped us refinance the house in 2008. "Good man, fair man. Frank Miller," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Don't usually see you this early. Is everything okay?" "Need to move some money around, Tom." We sat down in his office. I explained the situation. Not all of it, just enough. Marital problems. Separation likely. I needed to protect my assets. Tom's expression shifted from friendly to professional. I understand. Let me pull up your accounts. We had 3 accounts. Joint checking, joint savings, and a retirement fund I'd rolled over from my 401k. Total of $287,000. Built over 40 years of 60-hour weeks and living below our means. I want to move half the savings and check into a new account, I said. Personal. My name only. Tom nodded. That's within your legal right. Both names are on these accounts, so you're entitled to access the full amount. But taking half is the smart move. Keep things clean if it goes to court. He set up the new account, transferred $78,000 from savings, $4,200 from checking, left Linda with the same amounts. Credit cards? Tom asked. We have 2 joint cards. I want my name off them. That'll require her signature, technically, but I can close your liability on new charges as of today. Do it. The whole process took 38 minutes. From the bank, I drove to Morrison & Associates, a law firm I'd found online Sunday night. I'd called ahead, told them I needed a consultation about a divorce. The lawyer was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Morrison. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense handshake. Tell me what's going on, Mr. Miller, I told her. The lies, the mileage, the phone call to Helen, the motel, Robert. She took notes, her expression unchanging. Do you have proof? I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos I'd taken Friday night, Linda's car in the motel lot, the timestamp, the clear shot of room 112. This is good, Patricia said. Iowa is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can affect alimony decisions. It shows character. A judge takes that into account. I don't want her to get alimony. With this evidence and your willingness to split assets 50-50, you've got a strong case. How long were you married? 35 years. She nodded. Long marriage, but adultery helps. Were you the primary earner? For the first 20 years, yes. Last 15 we both worked, but I made more. Okay, I can draft separation papers today. You can serve her yourself or hire someone. Given the situation, I'd recommend a process server. Keep it clean. How much is this going to cost me? Retainer is $5,000. Could be more depending on how she responds. I wrote the check. I walked out of that office at 10:40 with a lawyer, a protected bank account, and a strategy. Robert could have Linda, but he wasn't getting anything else that was mine. She looked me in the eye and lied about her own mother's pain. That was the moment the love actually died. Monday evening. 6 o'clock was approaching. I'd spent the afternoon in the garage, organizing tools I didn't need to organize, giving myself something to do with my hands while my mind ran through what came next. Linda came downstairs at 5:30, hair done, makeup fresh, the routine I'd watched for 3 weeks. Heading out? I asked from the kitchen. Yeah. The doctor wants to discuss a new treatment option for Mom. Might be there a little later tonight. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd spent 35 years with, who'd raised 2 children with me, who'd stood beside me at my father's funeral and held my hand through my mother's long decline. Is Helen in pain? I asked. Linda met my eyes without hesitation. Yes, terrible pain. That's why they're trying the new treatment. I nodded slowly. That's hard. It is. She grabbed her purse. I'll call if it's going to be past midnight. Drive safe. She kissed me on the cheek, the same automatic kiss she'd given me every day for 3 weeks. Then she was gone. I stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the driveway, at the empty space where her car had been. That was it. The last lie, the last kiss, the last time she'd walk out of this house as my wife. I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger anymore, not even hurt, just nothing. The love had died. Sometime between Friday night at the motel and this moment, whatever I'd felt for Linda had simply stopped existing. You can't fix a foundation that's rotted through. You can only tear it down and start over. I went to the bedroom and started pulling her clothes from the closet. Dresses, blouses, the black coat she wore to church. I folded them carefully, not out of love, but out of habit. 40 years of doing things the right way doesn't just disappear. I found boxes in the garage, filled 4 of them with her belongings, her jewelry box, her books, the framed photos of her side of the family, her mother's quilt. I packed it all like I was preparing a job site. Methodical, thorough, complete. By 8 o'clock, the boxes sat by the front door, 4 neat stacks, everything labeled in black marker. I went to my office and printed 2 things: the cell phone bill from our carrier's website, showing the calls and texts between Linda's number and a number I'd looked up, Robert's, and the photo from Friday night, her car, the motel, room 112, timestamp 6:47 p.m. I placed them on the kitchen table side by side. Then I made a pot of coffee and sat down in the dark living room to wait. Chester lay at my feet. He'd been quiet all day, sensing something was wrong. "It's okay, boy," I said, scratching his ears. "Everything's going to be okay." At 10:15, headlights swept across the front window. I heard her car door, her footsteps on the walkway, the key in the lock. I reached over and turned on the single lamp beside me. The front door opened. I didn't turn on the porch light. I wanted her to walk into the darkness she had created. Linda stepped through the door, keys jingling in her hand. She was humming something. I didn't recognize the tune. She froze when she saw me sitting there in the chair, the single lamp casting long shadows across the living room. "Frank? Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Waiting for you." Her eyes adjusted. She noticed the boxes by the door, 4 of them, stacked and labeled. What is this?" "Come sit down, Linda." "Frank, what's going on? Why are my things in boxes?" "Kitchen table," I said. "Look at what's on the kitchen table." She moved slowly, uncertain. She set her purse on the counter and looked down at the papers I'd laid out. I watched her face, watched the exact moment she understood. Her hand went to her mouth, the phone bill, the photo. "Frank, I called your mother Thursday night," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "She's fine. Hasn't been in the hospital. Hasn't seen you since July 4th. I can explain. I followed you Friday. Watched you walk into room 112 of the Motel 6 off exit 42. Watched you carry wine to Robert Haynes." She tried to speak. Nothing came out. "You looked me in the eye tonight and told me your mother was in terrible pain. That was a lie. You've lied to me every single day for 3 weeks." Linda's knees seemed to buckle. She grabbed the edge of the table. "Frank, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." I stood up, walked into the kitchen, stood across the table from her. "You've been sleeping with your ex-boyfriend in a motel while telling me you were visiting your dying mother. It just happened. We ran into each other at the grocery store and started talking and you decided 35 years of marriage wasn't worth a conversation with me first?" Tears started down her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. Every single night for 3 weeks. I was going to end it. I swear I was." "When? After another month? Another year? When were you planning to stop lying to my face?" She had no answer. I picked up a folder from the counter. The separation papers Patricia had drafted. "These are divorce papers. Adultery grounds. I've already moved my half of our savings into a separate account. I've retained a lawyer. The house is in my name. I built it before we married, and we never refinanced with joint ownership. Frank, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll never see him again. I promise." "You're right. You won't see him again, because you're going to pack whatever else you need tonight, and you're going to leave. I've already called Sarah. She's expecting you." Sarah was Linda's sister. She lived 20 minutes away. "You called my sister?" "I told her you needed a place to stay. I didn't tell her why. That's up to you." Linda stared at me, tears streaming, mascara running. "Frank, please, don't do this." I looked at this woman, this stranger, and felt absolutely nothing. "You already did it," I said. "I'm just finishing what you started." The color didn't just leave her face. It left the room. She knew there was no way out. Linda stood there staring at the phone bill and the photo, her fingers trembling against the edge of the kitchen table. "How's Helen doing?" I asked. My voice was level, calm. She looked up at me, her eyes desperate, searching for an angle. She's stable. The treatment is helping." I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, hit play. My own voice came through the speaker. "Helen, it's Frank. I wanted to check on you." Linda said you'd been transferred to the hospital, but I called Mercy, and they had no record of you. So I tried here." Then Helen's voice, clear and strong. "Transferred? I'm in my room, dear. I haven't been to a hospital in years. Did Linda tell you I was sick?" I let it play for another 10 seconds. Helen laughs about beating Margaret at Scrabble, asking why Linda hadn't called her back. I stopped the recording. Linda's hand dropped from the table. She stepped backward, hit the counter behind her. "Frank, you were saying something about treatment? I can explain." "Robert," I said. Just the name. Nothing else. She closed her eyes. Her shoulders sagged. The silence that followed felt like the moment after a building implodes. That brief suspension where everything is collapsing, but hasn't quite hit the ground yet. "How long have you known?" she finally whispered. "Friday. Followed you to the motel. Watch you walk in with wine. You followed me? You lied to me. For 3 weeks. About your dying mother." Her face twisted, anger flashing through the tears. "So you spied on me? I verified what you were lying about. There's a difference. You had no right. I had every right." My voice stayed calm. That seemed to bother her more than if I'd yelled. "You're my wife. You told me you were visiting your sick mother. I called your sick mother. She wasn't sick. The math didn't add up. So I did what any man would do. I found out where you were really going. It's not..." She was stammering now, reaching for words that wouldn't come. "It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. We just talked, that's all. Just talked." I didn't respond. Just looked at her. She tried again. "Robert's been going through a hard time. His divorce. He needed someone to talk to. In a motel room. With wine. Every night for 3 weeks. Frank, did you sleep with him?" She opened her mouth. I closed it. I looked away. That was enough to answer. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "You heard me. Your things are packed. The boxes are by the door. Take them and get out of my house. Frank, please. Let's talk about this. We're done talking. You've been talking to me for 3 weeks. Every word was a lie." She started crying harder now. Real tears. Not the angry ones. But I felt nothing watching them fall. 40 years in construction. You learn to spot the difference between structural damage and surface cracks. This wasn't something you could patch and paint over. This was rot clear through to the foundation. "I'm not leaving," she said, trying to sound firm. "This is my house, too." "Actually," I said, pulling out another paper from the folder, "it's not. This house was built in 1987. We got married in 1990. The deed is in my name. Always has been." I watched her face as that reality landed. "Now get out." She tried to blame the man who built the house for the fact that she set it on fire. Linda's tears turned sharp. Her jaw clenched. I watched the shift happen, from caught to cornered to counterattack. "You want to know why?" Her voice rose. "You really want to know why?" "I know why. Because you're a liar and a cheat. Because you're boring, Frank." She was shouting now. "You retired and turned into an old man overnight. All you do is tinker in the garage and watch TV and talk about the weather. You don't want to do anything, go anywhere. You just exist." I stood there, let her talk. "Robert makes me feel alive. He listens to me. He makes me laugh. He wants to do things, experience life. I'm 62 years old, and I felt like I was dying in this house with you. So you fixed that by screwing your high school boyfriend in a motel. We didn't. It's not like that. Don't lie to me again. You've done enough of that." She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara. "You don't understand. You never understood. I've given you 35 years of my life. I raised your children. I kept your house. I did everything you wanted. And I worked 60-hour weeks for 40 years to pay for it. That's all you ever did. Work. And now you're retired. And you're still just going through the motions. There's no passion, no excitement, nothing." I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered when she'd become this person, or if she'd always been this person and I'd just never seen it. "Did you think about me?" I asked quietly, "when you were lying to my face about your dying mother?" She opened her mouth. I closed it. "When you used Helen, your own mother, as an excuse to go sleep with another man? Did you think about me? Frank, when you looked me in the eye tonight and told me Helen was in terrible pain, did you think about me then?" No answer. I'm bored, I said. That's your excuse. I'm bored. Not exciting enough for you. That's not. Boring paid off this house. Boring put 2 kids through college. Boring built you a deck and fixed your car and made sure you never had to worry about a leaking roof or a broken furnace or whether we'd have enough in retirement. My voice was still level, still calm, but I felt the words land like hammer blows. Boring showed up every day for 35 years. Boring kept his promises. Boring didn't lie about where he was going or who he was seeing. Linda was crying again, but quieter now. You want exciting? I gestured toward the door. Go. Robert's exciting. Robert's passionate. Robert's never held a job longer than 2 years, but I'm sure that'll work out great for you. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. And you know what? I believe you. You felt neglected. You felt bored. You felt like you were dying. I picked up the divorce papers from the table. So consider this your resurrection. You're free. Go be alive somewhere else. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding that there was no coming back from this, no apology that would fix it, no excuse I'd accept. I don't accept the blame for your choices, I said. You did this. Own it. The sound of that deadbolt sliding home was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It sounded like freedom. I walked to the front door and opened it. Cool October air rushed in. The porch light was still off. Take your boxes, I said. Get in your car. Leave. Frank, please. The bank accounts are separated. I moved my half this morning. Your car is in your name. I checked the title. You can take it and everything in it. I picked up a folder from the hall table. Inside were the separation papers Patricia had drafted. These are divorce papers. Adultery grounds. Iowa recognizes fault in divorce proceedings. This photo, these phone records, the testimony I'll provide. You won't get alimony. You won't get the house. You'll get exactly what you're entitled to by law and not a penny more. Linda's face went pale. You can't. I already have. The papers will be served to you formally within 48 hours. Sarah knows you're coming. I called her an hour ago. You called my sister? I told her you needed a place to stay. I didn't tell her why. That's your conversation to have. The reality of it was finally sinking in. I could see it in her eyes. The house, the security, the comfortable retirement she'd taken for granted, all of it, gone. Frank, don't do this. We can fix this. Counseling. I'll never see Robert again. I swear. Please. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. Fix it? I said quietly. Linda, you didn't break a vase. You didn't forget an anniversary. You looked me in the eye every single day for 3 weeks and lied about your dying mother so you could go sleep with another man. It was a mistake. No, a mistake is something you do once and regret. This was a choice. 21 choices. Every single night. Her hands were shaking. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You can go to Sarah's. You can go to Robert's. You can go to a hotel. I don't care. But you're not staying here. I grabbed 2 of the boxes and carried them out to her car in the driveway, set them in the trunk, came back for the other 2. Linda stood in the doorway, watching me, not helping, just watching. When all 4 boxes were loaded, I walked back to the front door where she still stood. Your keys, I said, holding out my hand. What? House keys. Give them to me. She fumbled with her keychain, hands trembling. I pulled off the 2 house keys and dropped them in my palm. I pocketed them. Goodbye, Linda. Frank. I closed the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a moment, staring at the closed door, like she couldn't believe this was happening. Then she walked to her car, got in, sat there for a minute with her hands on the wheel. Finally, the engine started. The headlights came on. She backed out of the driveway. I watched her taillights fade down the street, the same way I'd watched them fade 3 weeks ago on that rainy Thursday night. But this time, I knew exactly where she'd been, and I knew she wasn't coming back. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then the second deadbolt I'd installed 10 years ago after a break-in down the street. 3 locks, 3 clicks. The house was mine again. It hurts to cut off a limb to save the body, but at least you're still alive. The adrenaline drained out of me all at once. I stood in the entryway for a moment, just breathing. The house was silent, except for Chester's collar jingling as he walked over to check on me. I scratched behind his ears. "Just us now, buddy." He looked up at me with those loyal brown eyes, and I wondered, not for the first time, why dogs were better at love than people. I walked to the kitchen, poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a glass I'd gotten as a retirement gift. Cheap stuff. I wasn't a drinking man, but tonight felt like an exception. The house felt bigger, emptier, but somehow cleaner, like when you finally tear out rotted drywall and can see the studs underneath, damaged, but at least honest about it. I sat down in my recliner, the same spot I'd sat Friday night when I first knew something was wrong, the same spot I'd sat tonight, waiting for her to come home. But everything was different now. 35 years, gone, not slowly, not with a long decline in mutual understanding, just over, because she decided I was boring. I took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down. My phone sat on the side table. I picked it up and dialed Helen's number at Meadowbrook. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Frank? Is everything all right? It's almost 11. Helen, I need to tell you something, and I need to apologize." I told her everything. The lies, the motel, Robert, the divorce papers. There was a long silence on the other end. "That girl," Helen finally said, her voice tight with disappointment. "That foolish girl. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Sorry I had to use you to catch her. Don't you apologize. You did what you had to do. I'm the one who's sorry, Frank. Sorry my daughter turned out to be someone who could do this to a good man." My throat tightened. "I'll come visit tomorrow," I said. "Bring Chester. It's Tuesday." "I'd like that." "And Frank?" "Yeah, you did the right thing. It takes strength to walk away from something broken instead of pretending it can be fixed." We said goodnight. I set the phone down. The house settled around me. The creak of old wood, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, sounds I'd heard for 40 years. But tonight, they sounded different, clearer somehow. I finished the whiskey, rinsed the glass, let Chester out one last time. When I came back in, I stood in the living room and looked around. The couch where we'd watched TV, the mantel with photos of our kids, the bookshelf Linda had picked out 20 years ago. Tomorrow I'd start sorting through what stayed and what went. Tonight, I just needed to sit with what I'd done. I didn't scream, didn't hit anyone, didn't beg or plead or make a scene. I stood tall, kept my dignity, did what had to be done. It hurt. God, it hurts. But I was still standing, and sometimes that's enough. She called to say she made a mistake. I didn't call back. I'm done fixing other people's mistakes. 3 months after Linda left, the divorce was finalized. Patricia Morrison had been right. The evidence made all the difference. The photos, the phone records, Helen's testimony about the lies. Iowa might be a no-fault state, but judges still have discretion when it comes to dividing assets and determining alimony. Linda's lawyer tried to argue she deserved spousal support. 35 years of marriage. She'd given up career opportunities to support my work. She'd earned half of everything. Patricia brought out the phone bill showing 847 text messages to Robert over 3 weeks. Brought out the motel receipt she'd subpoenaed from Linda's credit card. Brought out my call recording with Helen. The judge was a woman in her 60s. She looked at Linda over her reading glasses and said, "Motion for alimony denied." Linda got her car, half the liquid savings we'd had in the joint accounts, and her personal belongings. I kept the house, my retirement fund, and my dignity. The whole proceeding took 45 minutes. Robert, it turned out, was living in a trailer park on the east side of town. I worked part-time at an auto parts store. 3 ex-wives, 2 bankruptcies, and a drinking problem he'd managed to hide from Linda during their motel meetings. "Exciting," she'd said. He made her feel alive. I wondered how alive she felt now, splitting rent on a 1-bedroom apartment near the airport, working part-time at Target to make ends meet. 2 weeks after the divorce was final, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. That night, I listened to the message. "Frank, it's me." Linda's voice was small, tired. "I know I don't have the right to call. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Robert isn't. Things aren't what I thought they'd be. I miss you. I miss our life. I was wondering if maybe we could talk. Maybe try to... I deleted it before she finished. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, waiting to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, vindication. But all I felt was tired. She was sorry. Of course she was. Sorry Robert turned out to be exactly who everyone knew he was. Sorry the exciting life she'd chased turned out to be a trailer and an auto parts store. Sorry she'd traded security for chaos. But she wasn't sorry she'd lied. Wasn't sorry she'd betrayed 35 years of trust. She was just sorry she got caught. Sorry it didn't work out the way she'd hoped. I thought about calling her back. I thought about telling her exactly what I thought of her apology. But what would be the point? She'd made her choice. I'd made mine. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. You don't waste time trying to glue together a shattered foundation. You clear it away and build something new. That's what I was doing, building something new. And Linda wasn't part of the blueprint. I blocked the number, poured myself a cup of coffee, and moved on with my evening. Some mistakes aren't mine to fix. Not anymore. I woke up on a Tuesday and realized I hadn't worried about anything in 6 months. That's what peace feels like. The house was quiet that morning, but it wasn't the heavy silence from before. This was different, clean, honest. I made eggs and bacon without checking the clock to see when Linda would be leaving. Drank my coffee on the back porch without wondering if she was lying to me. Read the paper cover to cover without that knot in my stomach. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Sundays became my day with Helen. I'd drive to the facility around 10, bring Chester, and sit with her for a couple hours. We'd play cards, watch game shows, talk about everything except Linda. Helen never asked about her daughter. I think she was too ashamed. But she told me once, "You're more family to me than she turned out to be, Frank. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. You showed me that." I started fishing again, bought a new rod, fixed up my old tackle box, drove out to Saylorville Lake every Wednesday morning. Linda had hated fishing, said it was boring, said I smelled like lake water afterward. It turned out I liked smelling like lake water. I reconnected with Ray and Tom, guys I'd worked with for 20 years. We met for breakfast every Friday at the diner on Hickman, talked about jobs we'd worked, buildings we'd built, the way things used to be done. They knew about the divorce, didn't ask questions, just showed up. That's what real friends do. The house changed too. I rearranged the living room, put my recliner where Linda's reading chair used to be, hung photos of job sites on the walls, buildings I'd helped construct, proof of things that were real and solid and still standing. I started cooking, real cooking, not just reheating casseroles. I learned how to grill a proper steak, make my own marinades, and bake bread from scratch. The kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary instead of Linda's perfume. The radio stayed on, classic country, old rock, whatever felt right. The house had sound in it again, life in it. Chester got more walks. I got more sleep. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes, stopped wondering where anyone was or what they were doing, stopped looking over my shoulder for lies. People ask me if I'm lonely, if the house feels empty without her. I tell them the truth. I'm not lonely. I'm alone. There's a difference. Lonely is sitting in a room with someone who's lying to you and feeling like a stranger in your own home. Alone is sitting on your porch with your dog, a cold beer, and the sunset, knowing exactly where you stand. I'd take alone over loneliness any day of the week. 6 months after Linda left, I woke up on a Tuesday and made coffee and realized something. I hadn't worried about anything in weeks, hadn't second-guessed myself. I hadn't felt that weight in my chest. I'd called it boring when I was married. Turns out it was peaceful. And peace, I decided, was exactly what I'd been building toward my whole life. I just had to clear away the rot to find it. I looked at her and saw a stranger, and for the first time, I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't wish her anything at all. It was a Saturday morning in April. Spring had come early that year, the kind of bright, clear morning that makes you glad to be alive. I was at the grocery store, stocking up for a cookout with Ray and Tom that afternoon. Steaks, corn on the cob, fresh rolls from the bakery. My cart was full, and I was in a good mood. That's when I saw her. Linda was in the frozen food aisle, standing in front of the budget meals. She'd lost weight, not in a healthy way. Her clothes hung loose. Her hair, which she'd always kept colored and styled, was showing gray at the roots. She looked tired, older. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd gambled everything and lost. I could have turned around, could have gone to a different aisle and avoided the whole encounter, but I didn't. I pushed my cart forward, steady, calm, no anger, no anxiety, just a man buying groceries. She looked up as I approached. I saw the exact moment she recognized me. Her eyes widened. Her hand went to her hair, an automatic gesture, trying to look more put together than she was. Frank, Linda. We stood there for a moment. Two people who'd spent 35 years together and now had nothing to say. She glanced at my cart. The steaks, the fresh vegetables, the good beer. Then on her own, 5 frozen dinners, the cheap kind, $2.99 each. How have you been? She asked. Her voice was small. Good, real good. She nodded, swallowed. That's good. I could see her working up to something. A question, an apology, a plea. Her mouth opened slightly, her eyes searching mine for some sign of softness. But I'd learned something in the last 6 months. You don't owe anyone your pain. I stood there, calm and square-shouldered, looking at this woman who used to be my wife, and I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no longing, just nothing. She must have seen it in my face, the indifference, the finality. Her mouth closed. She nodded again, smaller this time. Take care, Frank. You too. I pushed my cart past her, didn't look back. At the checkout, the cashier was friendly, a young woman who always remembered me. Having a party, Mr. Miller? Just a cookout. Friends coming over. Sounds nice. Beautiful day for it. It is. I paid, loaded the bags into my truck, drove home with the windows down and the radio up, Merle Haggard singing about Mama's hungry eyes. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, looking at my house, my porch, my life, and I realized something. I didn't pity Linda, didn't hate her. I didn't think about her at all unless I had to. She'd become what she always should have been, a stranger, someone I used to know. And that, more than anything else, felt like freedom. The truth might break your heart, but a lie will kill your soul. I chose the heartbreak, and I'm still standing. I'm sitting on my back porch right now. It's early evening. The sun's dropping behind the trees, painting everything gold and orange. Chester's at my feet, getting old like me, but still good company. I've got a glass of whiskey in my hand, not because I need it, but because I want it. There's a difference. It's been a year since Linda left. A year since I found out that 35 years of marriage had been built on something less solid than I thought. People ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd tried to work it out, given her another chance, gone to counseling. The answer is no. When you spend 40 years in construction, you learn something fundamental. You can't build on a cracked foundation. You can patch it, paint over it, tell yourself it's fine. But eventually, the whole structure fails. That's what our marriage was, a cracked foundation. And I didn't cause the crack. I just finally saw it. My gut told me something was wrong. The numbers told me she was lying. And when I followed that feeling, I found exactly what I feared I'd find. So here's what I want to say to any man listening who's felt that knot in his stomach, that nagging sense that something isn't right. Trust it. Your instincts are there for a reason. 40 years, 4 years, 4 months. Doesn't matter. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And when you find out the truth, whatever it is, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for discovering it. You're not the one who broke the trust. You're just the one who stopped pretending it wasn't broken. The truth hurts. God, it hurts. I won't lie about that. But you know what hurts worse? Living a lie. Waking up every day next to someone who's lying to your face and feeling that slow death of your dignity. I chose the truth. I chose the hard conversation, the divorce, the empty house, the starting over at 68. And I'd make the same choice again. Because now when I wake up, I know where I stand. I know what's real. I know the people in my life, Helen, Ray, Tom, even Chester. They're here because they want to be, not because they're hiding something. That's worth more than any 35-year marriage built on lies. Starting over isn't easy. I won't pretend it is. There are lonely nights. There are moments when you miss what you thought you had, but then you remember what you thought you had wasn't real, and you'd rather be alone with the truth than accompanied by a lie. So if you're going through something like this, if you're sitting in your house right now wondering if you're crazy for feeling what you feel, you're not crazy. You're awake. And being awake, even when it hurts, is better than sleeping through your own life. I raise my glass to you, wherever you are, to tell the truth, to dignity, to start over, and to the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're still standing. The sun dips below the trees. Chester sighs and shifts his head onto my boot, and I sit here on my porch, in my house, in my life, exactly where I'm supposed to be. A scar means you survived. It means the wound is closed. I wear mine like a badge. I've been thinking a lot about loyalty lately, what it means, what it costs. Why do some people have it and others don't? My generation, we were raised differently. You made a promise. You kept it. You shook a man's hand. That meant something. Marriage was supposed to be forever, not because it was easy, but because you'd given your word. But I'm not naive enough to think my generation was perfect. People have been lying and cheating and breaking promises since the beginning of time. It's not a modern problem. It's a human problem. The difference, maybe, is that we expected better. We held each other to a standard. Linda broke that standard. And when she did, I had a choice. Keep up appearances for the sake of what other people thought, or stand up for what I knew was right. I chose right over comfortable. That's the lesson, I think, the one I'd pass on to my sons. To any man facing something similar, your self-respect is worth more than any relationship, any marriage, any opinion someone else might have about you. People will tell you to work it out, to forgive, to remember the good times and let go of the bad. And maybe that works for some things, for small betrayals, for mistakes made in weakness and regretted in honesty. But there are some betrayals that cut too deep, some lies that go on too long, some disrespect that can't be walked back. You have to know the difference, and you have to be man enough to act when that line gets crossed. I loved Linda for 35 years. I loved her, built a life with her, would have done anything for her. But when she used her own mother as cover to betray me, when she looked me in the eye and lied without hesitation, when she blamed me for her choices, that was the line, and crossing it cost her everything. Some people might say I was too harsh, too quick to end it, too unwilling to forgive. Those people didn't sit in that house for 3 weeks wondering why their wife was lying, didn't do the math on the odometer, didn't watch the woman they loved walk into another man's arms. Those people don't get a vote. This is my life, my dignity, my peace of mind, and I chose to keep all 3. The scar is still there. I won't pretend it isn't. Some mornings I wake up and for half a second, I forget. I reach over expecting her to be there, and the empty bed reminds me all over again. But then I remember, that bed isn't empty because I failed. It's empty because I refused to. There's a difference between being alone and being abandoned. I'm alone by choice now, by design, by the decision to value truth over comfort. And that scar, that mark left by betrayal and hard choices and starting over at an age when most men are settled, that scar closed clean. It healed right, and I'm still here, still standing, still whole. That's not just survival. That's victory. Women come and go, but a good friend and a loyal dog, those are forever. Every Thursday night, Ray, Tom, and I play poker at my kitchen table. We started it about 4 months after Linda left. Ray mentioned missing the old card games we used to have on job sites during lunch breaks, 5-card draw, penny stakes, just something to pass the time. Why don't we start that up again? I'd said. So we did. Ray brings the chips and beer. Tom brings cigars, cheap ones that his wife won't let him smoke at home. I provide the table and the cards. We play for quarters. Nobody wins more than $5 on a good night. That's not the point. The point is showing up. The first few games, we stuck to safe topics, work stories, grandkids, the Hawkeyes' chances this season. But eventually, the real conversation started. Tom told us his daughter wasn't speaking to him. Some disagreement about how he'd handled her divorce 3 years ago. He'd told her husband to his face he was a deadbeat. Turned out he was right, but she'd resented the interference. She'll come around, Tom said, staring at his cards. Or she won't. Either way, I told the truth. Ray talked about his prostate cancer scare last year, how it had made him think about mortality, about whether he'd lived the life he wanted or just the life that happened to him. I decided I had, he said. Not perfect, but mine. That's enough. And I told them about Linda. Not all of it. They knew the broad strokes, but the details, the motel, Helen, the lies about her mother being sick. Jesus, Frank, Tom said quietly. That's low. It was. You did right, Ray said. Some men would have taken her back, would have convinced themselves it was somehow their fault. I thought about it, I admitted, for about 5 seconds. But you didn't. No, I didn't. We played in silence for a while. Then Tom laid down his cards. You know what I've learned? He said. Women, they're great. Love 'em. Been married 42 years. But women change. They leave. They die. They become different people than who you married. He gestured around the table. But you guys? We've been friends for 30 years. Through jobs, through marriages, through kids and grandkids and divorces and cancer scares. And you're still here, still showing up. Still the same guys I knew in 1995. Ray raised his beer. To show up. Tom and I raised ours. To show up, we said together. Chester, lying under the table, thumped his tail once against the floor. That's what I've learned this past year. Romance gets all the attention. The movies, the songs, the poems. Everyone talks about finding the one and living happily ever after. But nobody talks about this. The quiet loyalty of men who show up every Thursday with quarters and cheap cigars and no judgment. Nobody talks about the dog who doesn't care if you're rich or poor, married or divorced, successful or struggling, who just wants to be near you. That's the love that lasts. That's the foundation you can build on, and I'll take it over roses and promises any day of the week. My name is Frank Miller. I'm 69 now, and I've never slept better. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, looking around this house I built 40 years ago. Every beam, every joint, every square inch of it, I know where it came from and how it went together. This house has good bones, always has. The foundation is solid, level, true, and it's mine. Nobody can take it. Nobody can claim they deserve half of it because they brought wine to someone else while lying about their dying mother. It's mine because I built it, because I maintained it, because I valued it enough to protect it when someone tried to use it and throw it away. That's my legacy. Not the marriage that failed, not the 35 years that ended in a motel parking lot. My legacy is this. I kept my word. I did my job. I built things that lasted. And when someone tried to tear down what I'd built, I didn't let them. I stood my ground. People think legacy is about what you leave behind when you die. Your kids, your grandkids, your name on a building or a plaque somewhere. Maybe that's part of it. But I think legacy is also about how you handled the worst day of your life, what you did when everything fell apart, whether you kept your dignity when someone tried to take it from you. I had a choice that night at the motel. I could have kicked down the door, made a scene, let rage turn me into someone I wasn't, or I could have done what I did, documented it, protected myself, and handled it like a man who'd spent 40 years solving problems. I chose the second path, and every day since, I've been grateful for that choice. My kids know what happened. I didn't hide it, didn't badmouth their mother, but didn't lie for her either. Just tell them the truth and let them draw their own conclusions. They respect me for it. I can see it in how they talk to me now, how they ask for my advice, how they bring the grandkids over more often than they used to. They saw their father stand up for himself, and whether they realize it or not, that taught them something about what a man should be. Not perfect, not without flaws or mistakes, but honestly, strong enough to walk away from something broken instead of pretending it could be fixed. I'm 69 years old. I thought by now I'd be sitting on this porch with Linda, talking about grandkids and retirement trips and where to spend our 50th anniversary. Instead, I'm here alone, with Chester, with my Thursday night poker game, with Helen on Sundays and fishing on Wednesdays, and a life that's smaller than I planned but truer than what I had. And you know what? I sleep through the night now. No more lying awake wondering where she is. No more checking the odometer. No more knot in my stomach waiting for the next lie. Just peace. That's worth more than any anniversary. My name is Frank Miller. I built a good life. Someone tried to burn it down, but I'm still standing, and the foundation is still sound.